let's talk about Justice League. Or I should say, let's talk about Justice League. Because it's been 2 years since the release of Justice League. And I was talking about it. I talked about it a couple times this week. And one of the comments I saw was when I said the movie bombed. Someone's like, "What are you talking about? The movie made like almost $900 million." And I'm all like, "No, the movie made 650 million in that area, which is considered a bomb considering the $300 million that Warner Brothers spent on making it. That movie is not a winner. That movie's not a winner at all. BVS cleared nearly 900 million. But I do believe that had they released the extended cut right off the bat, it would have crossed over to that $1 billion number. I think it would have done. I really do. I really feel that. And I say that because people here 2 years later are still demanding the Snyder cut. And they're demanding the Snyder cut because they want to see how different it is. And when I say different, oh, I ain't kidding how different. Because here's what we're finding out now. Joss Whedon's Justice League script almost had 80 new pages. Think about that one for a second. Justice League had nearly 80 new script pages. They brought him in to just work on the reshoots. 80 pages is probably half the movie. It was a hard 2-hour movie. So probably more than half the movie. And I've said that forever. If you go back and you watch the 2016 Comic-Con trailer, Ben Affleck, much thinner. Then he got on the wagon a bit, or he fell off the wagon and he gained a lot of weight, and then they went back and they did the reshoots, and all of a sudden Bruce Wayne was puffy as all hell and looked uncomfortable in almost every shot he was in because he wasn't in the same shape he was in. Now, it says here that a new report claims that Joss Whedon's reshoots on Justice League contained nearly 80 new script pages. While the MCU focused on solo movies leading up to their big team-up film, The Avengers, DC took a different route and jumped right into Justice League before giving all the main characters their own solo film. Snyder directed DC's team-up film, but due to a family tragedy, Joss Whedon was brought in to finish the movie for Warner Brothers. Well, that's not necessarily true. Joss Whedon was ultimately brought in by Zack Snyder to handle the rewrites. And I have a feeling a lot of that came in from what Warner Brothers had said due to studio notes from the very first cut. And we know a little bit about that from some of the things Snyder has said himself, that the original vision that he and Chris Terrio had for Justice League ended up being scrapped after Batman v Superman failed to connect in the box office because DC, the heads of DC, in this case most likely the head of Warner Brothers, Kevin Tushihara, wanted it to be funny. Right? They wanted it to be funny. You know, they thought Batman v Superman and Justice League, not funny. Make it funny. Because they figured if they can get the humor and that banter and that wit, that they can basically capture the Marvel magic. And who better than Joss Whedon, who was, I don't know, an architect of Phase 2. And unfortunately, he was just not the right guy for that. So shortly after the film's release, it was revealed that a significant portion of the film changed from Snyder's original vision. Reports claim that around 15 to 20% of the movie was reshot by Whedon, with several of his scenes taken out of the final cut of the film. Like his previous work on the DC Extended Universe, Justice League was going to be much darker and even introduce Darkseid. Snyder had been very present on social media, often posting behind-the-scenes looks at what fans could have gotten with his version of the film. Now a new report reveals how much of the script has actually changed. I've always thought it was more than 15 to 20%. Right. But the 15 to 20% that they reshot was all like the interpersonal stuff. It was all the character scenes. That's why they feel so tonally different. And I mean that literally. Go back and watch Justice League. Watch the intro. The intro to that movie is so Watchmen, it's not even funny. I mean, it's the same kind of concept. It's a montage, a slow-mo montage shot in Zack Snyder style. And then go and look at the scenes of them in the Batcave, and they're all talking, or when like Aquaman gets the lasso of truth and starts kind of confessing how he really feels about something. It's lighter tone. It's a totally different take. It's a totally different theme. It's just Joss Whedon is not the guy to direct a Zack Snyder joint. Now, Zack Snyder directing Joss Whedon's words maybe could have worked, but damn, they effed it up real bad. Now, according to the New York Times, Warner Brothers hosted a small screening for a few filmmakers, including Whedon, who Warner Brothers hired in hopes of making Justice League a success like he did with The Avengers. At the time, Justice League was only a rough cut, and Warner Brothers gave Whedon a new, wow, 80 new script pages to shoot. Think about that. 80 new script pages. That is not a small number. That is not a minuscule number. That is not any of that. But oh no, Zack Snyder's fault, that Justice League. Yeah. Anyway, despite his best efforts, fans and critics responded negatively to Justice League. And soon after the film's release, fans started demanding the Snyder cut of the film. 2 years later, fans still haven't gotten their wish granted, but that hasn't stopped them from setting the internet ablaze with their request. Even the cast and crew of Justice League have shown their support. Yeah, right? When you've got the core cast of the movie saying like, we'd like to see the original version, please. It kind of shows you the same kind of dedication people had when they learned about the Richard Donner cut of Superman 2. Really. Anyway, despite the clear desire from fans and people who worked on the movie, Warner Brothers still doesn't have any plans to release the Snyder Cut. Even though Warner Brothers has spent a lot of money on reshoots for Justice League, finishing the Snyder Cut could cost between 30 and 40 million because of the incomplete special effects sequences. The Snyder Cut has been generating a lot of buzz lately, but Warner Brothers might not be keen on spending that much money on a new version of a movie that is already released. If they did decide to release a Snyder Cut on Justice League, however, fans would no doubt support the film. Yeah, 100% they would support the film. It's 100% they would support the film. There's not even a question of that. There's not even a question of that. But, news is spreading about the potentiality of it going to HBO Max. I did do a video about it last night that came up, and that was given to me by Mikey Sutton, who's a friend. And you know what? I believe it. And if you talk to people, and I just want to say this real quick, the release the Snyder Cut fans are hardcore AF, hardcore, in a good way, and also somewhat in a bad way, depending on who you talk to. Like, I was asked the question after a friend of mine wandered into that debate and kind of posed it from like a neutral pseudo negative perspective, and they jumped on him about it. And his mistake was he fought back, and it was funny because the information on the movie is kind of vague, which is concerning to me, because like you have people like who say storyboard artist Jay Olivia confirms that like 90% of the movie is done. I haven't seen him say that, so I don't know. But then, you've got Momoa saying he's seen the movie, and people out there interpret that to be that the movie itself is done. No, we can kind of argue that the special effects aren't done. We know the special effects aren't done for everything. So there's like a lot of kind of, a lot of push and pull on the little finer details. But as always, the devil is in the details. So knowing exactly where things are or what's going on is probably what fans just really want to know at this point. And really, HBO Max is what they should do. Because, the article says, like, why would they want to pump in $30 to $40 million in order to get this movie on there? Well, you'd pump in 30 to 40 million because you'd make it back like in the first couple months, right? So if you take the Snyder Cut of Justice League, right, and you put that on HBO Max, people are going to spend $15 a month. And with all the other DC stuff coming down the pipeline, you get 100 million people on there. I mean, that's a lot of people worldwide. But you get like, let's say 20 million people at $15 a month. That's a lot of money, right? That's a lot of money every single month that they're getting in now from just running these servers. Yeah, there's operational costs and everything else, but still, subscriptions equal payment over time. The average person paying $15 a month is going to run them near $150 a year, right? Probably more than that. No, it's going to be like 150, I think, for the year. The each person $150. Are they going to spend $150 on seeing the movie? No, not even seeing it in theaters and buying it on Blu-ray is going to cost $150. It's the most viable option to put that movie on HBO Max. But think of it like this. When we talk about how effed Snyder got in regards to Justice League, how Warner Brothers like screwed him over. And we know that they'll do that. They did it with Jared Leto and the Joker. We know that. We know that at this point. There's no, there's no disputing that. If you go and just look at the details, you may not like the fact that Jared Leto tried to get Joaquin Phoenix's movie killed, but Warner's lied their ass off to him too. And so the way that they treated Zack Snyder off of Batman v Superman, when they released a cut of his movie that was 30 minutes of missing story-driven footage that would help connect the dots. They doomed that movie. And then in an act of desperation, they removed Zack from his position as kind of king of the DCEU, the architect of the DCEU, neutered his story for Justice League. And then when tragedy struck his family, they brought in a guy who cannot even in any way match the visual stylings and pacing and tone of Zack Snyder. And it just created this Frankenstein of a movie that should never have been released in the state that it was. They should have delayed the movie by 6 months to a year. And they should have focused on making it right, because the amount of money that they lost, the amount of embarrassment that they felt, sent a ripple effect through the DCEU, which is one of the reasons why Joker was greenlit. And as much as I like Joker, and it's not its fault that Batman v Superman and Justice League's failings tanked the DCEU, but Warner's has no faith in their products. And I think that's abundantly clear. And every time they do something right, they double and triple down on it, just like they did with Joker, just like we heard about last night with the potentiality of a sequel, or from what I was being told, a trilogy. We know they do these things because that's all they know how to do, is double down when they've done something right. Hence why there's 5 Harry Potter prequel movies to a series that doesn't have source material to pull from and is in utter shambles right freaking now. But anyway, I do want to hear your thoughts and your opinions. Let me know on this one, because quite frankly, we are in a very weird place with it. This video is supported by patrons like you. If you'd like to become a patron, please head over to patreon.com/Matt Jarbo.